So as I said, the Interact Central Europe program funded the CCI project, so you know it very well. So you closely followed up on it the previous years, and you also participated in this setting today online. So maybe ask you to reflect on the project in general and on the footprint that it has left, but also on what you have heard today.
Thanks, Ina, and good afternoon from my side. So I'm very happy to be here at this session of this final conference of the Indo-CCI project. I'm working at the Joint Secretariat of the Interact Central Europe program, which is a transnational cooperation program, which is actually stretching from the Baltic Sea to the Adriatic Sea across 9 countries. And we are supporting, through the European Regional Development Fund, transnational cooperation projects within our program area. And maybe just to put the Indo-CCI project into the larger frame, Indo-CCI is one of our 24 projects which we have been supporting in the field of culture, where we have been allocating around 39 million euro EIDF for supporting cooperation. And in fact, this helped and allowed more than 240 institutions across Central Europe and beyond, of course, to cooperate in the frame of our projects. And yeah, I'm very pleased to be here because, as you were mentioning, Ina, I have been accompanying the Indo-CCI project over the past years. The first time I touched upon it, it was in 2018 in the application process, and then the project started in 2019, and time is really flying by, and we are already 2022, and the project is about to end in a couple of days. So it's really interesting and good to see how successfully the project was, and to show and to learn all the lessons which were also presented in this morning's session on how culture and creative industries can be used as a driver for economic and societal transformation in regions which have a more character of traditional industrial regions. I took some notes during the session and tried to order my thoughts while listening to the very interesting different speakers we had this morning. And maybe to start with the last point we just heard on the importance on whether to have something on the ground or more something on the policy level or a mix of both. I fully agree to what we just heard, that actually a mix of a practical implementation of testing at local or regional level combined with a strategic policy level actions in order to foster the mainstreaming of the results, that the combination of both is actually a key success factor. And we have seen this in many projects, that actually it requires often the combination of both elements in order to have really a strong and visible to the people on the ground, a visible impact in the respective territories. Transnational cooperation, which is this the topic our program is supporting as a key tool, is thereby the vehicle in order to foster the testing and to support the testing, to foster the exchange of knowledge, of practices and experiences in order to allow to successfully implement the testing and to influence the mainstreaming of the policies. And then, of course, we have been talking at the beginning of the session about the really sad circumstances of the situation in Ukraine. And so transnational cooperation has also, of course, also a very important role in bringing people together across countries, across borders, and to strengthen the ties within the entire European area. And so the Interact Central Europe program is just one of the transnational cooperation programs which are existing all across the European Union, in addition, of course, to the other Interact programs, which are at the cross-border level, fostering the cooperation and closing the ties beyond the borders in a cross-border settings. Coming back to this dimension of practical implementation plus a policy dimension. I think INDO-CCI has really very well integrated both elements, and this was, I believe, also a very strong aspect of a success factor in order to support the goal achievement. And I think we have already heard, and we will hear also during the rest of the sessions, how successful and how very well the project and the partners did in using CCIs as a driver for change for traditional industrial regions. If I can sum up a bit what we heard, I would go for both sessions maybe, because I really found they were very well interlinked and really included very interesting elements. There's the morning session and then the second morning session, this deep talk session. I think it has really greatly shown that how the INDO-CCI project results and CCIs as in general can influence the strategic frameworks and be a driver for regional development, and that there are two key components to be considered. One are the skills. So we've seen it in the frame of the INDO-CCI project with the competence building of the staff and regional administrations as a key element of success, which was stressed several times. Same as for training stakeholders and partners, which was also mentioned in the manual, for example. So it's important to have the people on board, and as we heard, to change mindsets in order to integrate these change processes in the daily routines. And then as a second element, there is, of course, the policies, which we have here in this project as the regional strategies, which are a way of building the bridges and sustaining the results in the long term. And maybe just to underline, Interreg thereby has, of course, only limited funds, but we understand ourselves as being the seed for a change, which then needs to be taken up at local and regional level through such a policy change, and which can be then sustained by the people, which are then committed of the necessity of the change, and by tapping on funds, which are other local, regional, national, or other European funds, which are then allowing to roll out these results. And there we heard also the importance of being aligned and being well consistent with other regional strategies, like, for example, the smart specialization strategies, the S3 strategies. I think we also heard about two key elements from the projects, or two products of the project, which are very relevant. The e-toolbox we heard about, which I believe is a very helpful tool compiling the different information, which allows the further rollout, not only in the partner territories involved in the project, but beyond. And then I believe the policy manual we heard in the first session about, I think it really includes very relevant policy recommendations. And I have to agree, it was also discussed in the first discussion round, the title. I really think the title is very well chosen, because wisdom of places is, this really makes sense. This is really the key essence, because it makes clear the territorial dimension is key, and that as it is highlighted, that the change is site specific. There is not one solution fits all, but it needs to be adapted to the setting of the respective territories. And in this regard, maybe just to put it into a broader frame, this is also exactly what stands in the Territorial Agenda 2030, which is the strategic framework for spatial planning and territorial development in Europe, which has as a title, A Future for All Places, and which is strongly highlighting the need of a place-based approaches and putting this emphasis on this territorial dimension, which you have also recognized in your policy recommendations document. So I really appreciate this a lot, and I find this very relevant and very useful. So as we can see, with the great examples which we have heard, and also from the Karlovy region and from Chemnitz, for example, CCIs can really be a driver for change in traditional industrial regions. And the tools which were developed in the frame of the project were successfully put in practice, and as we can see, are highly relevant in this regard. with this, maybe just to conclude, from Interreg Central Europe program side, we hope that these change processes, which have been triggered through this INDO-CCI project, will continue at territorial level, will be scaled up and taken up in further policies, as we already heard, and where we, as I pointed out, hope that we have planted the seed for really continuing this change process. And then we hope, of course, that the cooperation between the project partners and beyond, across the borders in Central Europe, will be sustained and will continue also in the future. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you for these closing words. Yeah, maybe an applause, of course.